Hey, what's going on? So I had a couple of requests from some of my viewers, so I'm gonna try to get into all of this in this video. The first one was how I came to this realization, realization of on race, and it's a good question. I had to think about it for a little bit. I guess I could say I remember as a kid, I guess seeing black people for the first time because I grew up in Long Island in an Italian American neighborhood, you know, and I remember. I guess I could pinpoint a time when I saw like black people for the first time. I guess it's when I went to Hempstead, Long Island, when my mom, we were over there for some reason. I think she was putting us into some sort of a summer program, and all of the kids there were black, and I remember this. Like, they were all black, and it was my first time seeing them, and I thought it was interesting. I was like, I didn't know that people came in different colors. You know what I mean? I remember thinking that as a kid. Nobody told me anything about them. Nobody said anything to me about them, and I thought it was weird. Like, so and I was wondering, like, so how do you explain this? I kid you not, I swear, as a kid, I was thinking this, like, why do they look like that? I was thinking this. And I was thinking, do people come in other different types of colors too? I remember thinking this as a kid. And so nobody explained anything to me. It's like they acted like it was just normal. And I remember as a kid, and this was my first time seeing black people for the first time, and nobody explained this to me. Nobody said anything to me, but I remember thinking, what is this? What is this? What are this? What is this? Why are they like that? I remember, I kid you not. And then I also remember a point in my childhood when I was watching TV and there was this black comedian, and I guess by this time I had already seen black people and stuff like that, but I didn't know like people acknowledged that there was different racial color differences. I didn't know. I haven't heard any. I think this is probably the first time I heard anybody acknowledge this difference. It was on this black comedian, making fun of white people, and stuff like that. And I remember, I kid you not, as a kid, he was making fun of white people, and I kind of felt bad. I was like, why is he making fun of white people? Like, you know what I mean? Like, so we're bad? I remember thinking that because, as a kid, you know what I mean? I didn't think of myself as anything other than white because, obviously I knew there were black people, and obviously I was like, I'm not one of them, so I must be white because, in my complexion, my skin color. So I remember feeling bad. I was like, what's going on? Like, why is he, are we bad? Like, is it bad to be white? I remember thinking this as a kid. Like, is it bad to be white? And nobody explained any of this stuff to me. But so then I had relatives that lived in more black neighborhoods, and then they would come to me talking about, I had one relative that liked black girls. And he's like, oh, black girls look better and all this and this and that. And I didn't know, you know what I mean? I was like, at that time I was like, yeah, I guess, And so, however, though, as I grew, and I went to high school. The high school that I went to had a lot of black people in it, and but by the time I was in high school, actually, I went to school. There were much more Dominicans in this school, right? There were much more Dominicans in this school, so I was around Dominicans, during that time period. And however, though, by this point I would notice that blacks would always like talk about differences between whites and blacks. They would always talk about these differences. You know what I mean? And they always, I think everybody knows this, that they always act hard, they always act tough, like, just, and all these kinds of things that, and there were many incidents, like one time in high school, I was a kid, I didn't know anything, very naive. I found like a ring, right? I found a ring, and this black kid told me that he could get me money for it. So I gave it to him to get me money for it. You know what I mean? We were in the same class. So he didn't get me money for it, and I would ask him about it, and he was like, his words exactly. He said, and I kid you not, I swear, he said, "That's what you get for trusting a black person." That's what he said. That's what you get for trusting a black person. And I didn't say anything, you know what I mean? But during this time, I always thought to myself, like no, we're the same people. We're all the same people. I kid you not. This is what I thought. This is really what I thought during that time. No, we're all the same people, white people can steal too, and being black doesn't change your personality. I actually thought this. Being black doesn't change your personality. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. And I noticed like blacks would think that they're tougher because they're black, because they are black, and all these things. I've always noticed these things. And I've always thought, no, we're the same. And then I guess I always heard black people complaining about everything, and everything is racism and all this and that. And I never really agreed with that. I never thought that. I thought that it was just like that, like each individual's actions, and stuff like that. And so in the beginning of the 2016 Trump election, up until then I was kind of indifferent on race, kind of, you know what I mean? But in the beginning of the 2016 Trump election, I noticed that blacks were complaining about racism, like from Trump and Republicans and stuff like that. And I was like, no, it's not about race. I said something like, oh, I was one of those, the Democrats are the real racists. Yes, I know, it's very cringe. But yes, I was one of those for a time period. And no, the Democrats are the real racists. The KKK was part of the Democrats. Stuff like that. You know what I mean? I would say these things, and but I would notice that blacks as a whole, I started realizing like this is really a lost cause. I myself, like, just realizing how blacks were so in their ways of hating Donald Trump and Republicans that I was like, it's a lost cause. Because even back then, like, even if somebody was racist, I didn't even care. I didn't care. But then when I got to a video, because back then YouTube was different. Back then YouTube would recommend you anything, any video of the videos that you like to watch. And I came across a video from Jared Taylor, and it was a slow, once I got the gist of what he was saying, then it all made sense to me. Everything just made perfect sense to me. What Jared Taylor was saying is like, that's why they are this way. That's why their cities are the way they are. That's why anywhere where they are, in large numbers, there's so much destruction, why there's so much poverty, why they are in poverty. And it just made perfect sense to me. It answered everything, because you can say, oh, it's not about race. It's not about race, and Democrats are the real racist and stuff like that, and we're not racist. But you can't deny that blacks in general, as a whole, by large and disproportionately per capita, they live at a very different standard than whites do. And they think in a very different way. If you notice this, I've noticed this because from speaking to whites and blacks, they think very differently. Very differently. They think. Just the way they think. You know, the way they see things. You know what I mean? And it just all makes sense to me. You know? And I think that there's something wrong with the way blacks view themselves in the United States. Something very wrong with it. They kind of see themselves as gods. You know what I mean? They look at themselves, their race, as gods. Like they are a god for being black. You know what I mean? This is how they see it. And they'll tell you that white people see themselves this way, but regardless of whether they do or not, it's the fact that what they tell you is the opposite. You know what I mean? It's actually what they are. You know? Just name a black organization. It all boils down to blacks are gods. You know what I mean? That's basically what it all boils down to with them. Kind of like Jews. Jews kind of tend to see themselves as gods too. And I think that in reality, God punishes groups like this. God punishes groups like this. I think that's what God doesn't reward this. He punishes it. It's blasphemy. That's what it is. It's blasphemy. So basically during Jared Taylor, after watching Jared Taylor videos, I would look for more of those kinds of videos, from other people that already know about this, what Jared Taylor was saying. And from there, that's it. That's when I realized it. And I saw my group and I said, no. Something needs to be done about what's going on with my group, So that's answers. Hopefully that answers that. And then another guy wanted me to talk about explaining the differences between Latin, what a Latin is, and then what a Hispanic is. And I'm going to give you guys a vague description of the way I think it is, because I don't, you know what I mean. I did research and I know the facts, but I'm not going to give you an elaborate intellectual, explanation, but I'll do my best. So the term Latino, from what I know, was actually created by Napoleon, and his objective in creating that term was to unite all these different people against, to basically have a bigger army. That was his interest in doing that. And basically, I don't know what ended up happening with that, but now these people call themselves Latinos, So this, to me, the issue is, though, that if you call yourself a Latino, it has to be for a reason. It can't be for no reason. You can't be an African and call yourself Latino, because there's nothing Latino about being African. There's nothing Latin about being African. Where does anything Latin come from? It comes from Southern Europe. That's where true Latin heritage comes from. You can't put it in any other. It doesn't make sense any other way. So this is the true origin of what is Latin, right? So what's a Latino should come from there. You can't just learn a language, speak a language, and then call yourself something. No. Because at the end of the day, I speak English, but I'm not British. I'm not from England. You know what I mean? I'm not English. I'm not an Anglo-American. So that's the reality, okay? You can try to sugarcoat it however way you want, but that's the reality. So no, you can't be a full-blown African of African descent and call yourself a Latino. It's not authentic. I mean, I guess you can technically, but it's not authentic. You're African. You are Afro. You are just Afro. You're not Latino, you are just Afro. And Hispanic to me is a more authentic term for Hispanic people of Spanish Iberian descent. Iberian descent. Because the Iberian Peninsula during the Roman Empire, I mean, this is thousands, this goes back thousands of years, was called, the name, again, it's a very vague description, I think is something that has to do with Hispanic. The name was Hispanic. Hispania, that's what the name was of the Iberian Peninsula during the Roman Empire. So to me, it's like what a Hispanic is basically somebody of the Iberian Peninsula, descended of the Iberian Peninsula. Somebody that has a legacy through the Iberian Peninsula, with the Iberian Peninsula, okay? Like, where you have to have a lineage from there. You should have a lineage from there, you know what I mean? And to be honest, if you are of a group and you hate it, then you shouldn't even say that you're of that group. You know what I mean? Like if you hate your Hispanic lineage, then okay, if you want to be African or whatever, you know what I mean? Then be African. But don't say that you're one of us and then come to us and tell us that our Spanish ancestors were colonizers and they dehumanized people and stuff like that. Okay, you're African. You know what I mean? That way, that makes it much easier for us to just say, okay, you're an enemy. You're an enemy. Don't act like you're one of us. You're not in our group. You know what I mean? Racially, yes, you have the lineage, but we can't, this is the thing. We can't accept people like this. So yes, no black Africans, because you're African. Like, aren't you people proud of your race? Like, you guys you guys will act like you're so proud of your race. But you desperately try to reach so hard to be anything but what you actually are. Stop it. Just call yourself African. Be proud to be African. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with being black. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being African. Be proud of it and stop trying to steal other people's heritage. Stop trying to usurp our heritage, our identity. It's not yours, it's ours. All right? You have no trace to us. You have no connection to us. Stop it. Take it easy.